All right, so this morning's breaking news is that the people of West Baltimore must boil their water after a coli finding. And this was published in the Washington Post yesterday, and a coli was detected in the water supply in West Baltimore on Friday. And so just to refresh our memories on what E. coli is, right, it's this Escherichia coli, right, and it's a bacteria that's found in the environment, on foods, and in the intestines of people and animals. E. coli are a large and diverse group of bacteria. Although most strains of E. coli are harmless, others can make you sick. Some kind of E. coli can cause diarrhea, while others cause urinary tract infections, respiratory illnesses, and pneumonia, and other illnesses. So I think it's interesting reading this. I didn't know much about, I knew E. coli could do this, but I didn't know it could do this. Thank you. And so the fact that E. coli can mimic respiratory illness and pneumonia is very interesting, because it makes me wonder how many of those COVID cases were just misdiagnosed E. coli infections, That's an interesting element to add to this. And so now, allegedly, there have been no reports of illness in the city as of yet. But again, maybe they're being misdiagnosed as something else. That's not something that I don't think should be ruled out. And so the West Baltimore neighborhoods where this E. coli was found, right, it was found in samples taken from the Sandtown, Winchester, and Harlem Park communities during the routine testing on Friday. And so now this is West Baltimore neighborhoods. This is what they give me for Harlem Park, and I love this church that's up there. I'm gonna have to go visit that one. But here's Fort McHenry in the downtown Baltimore area, and it's interesting that the way they have Route 40 here, 2 Route 40s, it's kind of interesting. I have to investigate that. One's going one way, the other's going the other. I think that's the way that works. Not being a driver, I don't really pay that close attention to the roads. But it's located here, and the Sandtown area is part of this as well. For lack of a better term, this is not a very affluent area of Baltimore, right? And so it says that this neighborhood is one of Baltimore's most blighted communities, though sometimes referred to as Baltimore's Harlem, and that's because back in the day it wasn't always so blighted, and people like Diana Ross and the Supremes and, Billie Holiday before her, and so they would play there. They would come in and play the theaters and stuff in this neighborhood, right? But by the time of the 2015 protests and rioting over Freddie Gray's death, 3% of the population was incarcerated, a third of its housing abandoned, and I bet this is an underestimate, right? 20% of the working age people were unemployed, and again, I think this is a low estimate because I saw another source, which I didn't clip, damn it, and a third of its residents were living in poverty. Again, I have to believe that this is an underestimate, I bet it's over 50% or greater. And so make what you will of the fact that this is the neighborhood that this E. coli was found, right? But because of the way the Baltimore water supply works, they had to expand the boil water advisory to parts of Baltimore and Howard counties as well as a precaution. And that some of the affected neighborhoods in southwestern Baltimore County include Arbutus, Halethorpe, and Lansdowne, which plays a starring role in the season premiere episode whenever that comes. And so it says that the city's Department of Public Works is trying to find the source of the contamination and is flushing the system continuously to replenish water supplies, as well as increasing chlorination in the affected area, according to a statement. The agency said that the problem does not stem from wastewater treatment or water treatment plants, which officials said are operating up to code. And of course, the interesting thing about this is this code even a good enough standard? Apparently not. Right? But it says here that they believe that the presence of E. coli bacteria indicate the water may have been contaminated by human or animal feces. And that, as mentioned, it can cause diarrhea, cramps, nausea, and headaches, and may pose greater health risks for infants, young children, the elderly, and people with severely compromised immune systems, according to the city. Interesting that they say nothing about the upper respiratory infections and the pneumonia that this thing can cause, because the CDC says that E. coli can cause these things, right? And so also interesting is that they say they want to increase the chlorination in the affected area. And of course, this is interesting because chlorine is a poison, right? It's totally toxic. Right? It says that chlorine is a chemical that inhibits bacterial growth in water, right? But it says that chlorine poisoning can occur when you touch, swallow, or inhale chlorine. Chlorine reacts with water outside of the body and on mucosal surfaces inside your body, including the water in your digestive tract, causing hydrochloric acid and hypochlorous acid to form. Both of these substances can be extremely poisonous to humans. And so now, of course, they're going to say that, it's the levels, only a small amount of chlorine is needed to kill this bacteria growth. But even a small amount of poison is still poison. I don't know if Healthline or any of these people using chlorine to sanitize things watch the ID Network or some of these shows like Snapped, where people slowly poison each other with antifreeze, right? It just takes a little bit at a time and then it builds up. And so who knows how much damage has been done to our digestive tracts in the wake of all of this chlorine poisoning that they've been giving us for the last who knows how long have they been chlorinating water, forever. Just as they've been adding fluoride, another toxic chemical that they put into our water. It's just absolutely insane. But the real villain isn't the E. coli or the chlorine or the fluoride or anything else, right? It's the neglect of the infrastructure over decades, which has forced cities like Baltimore and what's happening in Jackson, Mississippi. I don't know if you guys have heard about that. I don't know how you can miss that story. It's absolutely tragic what these people are going through down there. But, they want to blame the neglect of the infrastructure over decades. Right, so whose fault is the neglect of infrastructure, over decades in a place like Baltimore? And because it says, in majority black Baltimore, the disproportionate impact of the costs make water affordability an environmental justice issue. She goes on to say that systemic racism and redlining has put people at a disadvantage and is magnifying the impact of the disinvestment in our water system because black and brown families are facing the worst impacts of this. And so now this is really the sort of incredible aspect about what this is, and how it's affecting these people in this place. How is what this is possible here? It just, it doesn't make sense. You have to start looking beyond these triggering words, When are the people in Baltimore going to start waking up to the fact that if this is something that's happening, then it's caused by the very same people and that it's like against like here? And none of this matters anyway, right? None of the E. coli poisoning that's happening, none of the chlorination and so forth, fluoride, none of this really matters because all rainwater is unsafe to drink. And this is something that comes up in what will be episode 2 of the new season, right? And so the real breaking news is that we're all fucked, right? There's nothing we can do unless you're using distilled water for everything. All water today is poisoned. So, thank you. Unbelievable. All right, so that's it for this one. All right, remember, guys, just because you don't know the truth doesn't mean you can't have fun with the lies, right? And so until the next one, cheers.